so you finally decided to try Clair Obscur and are a little overwhelmed with all these systems and mechanics. Don't worry, we've got you covered. Here are some beginner tips for Expedition 33. Okay, let's talk difficulty. Clair Obscur offers 3 difficulty settings when starting a new game, and you can change them at any time you want. The default setting of Expeditioner is a fair challenge, but you should think twice before turning it up to Expert. Trust us, it's pretty freaking hard. Expert difficulty increases the damage that you take from attacks considerably, meaning that you need to be dead on perfect with most of your parries, dodges, and other defenses just to survive basic encounters. A single mistake can be deadly on Expert, so on your first playthrough, Expert will likely be more frustrating than fun, even if you like a challenge. As far as exploration goes, you're gonna want to search everywhere. Many of the areas you'll explore in Clair Obscur can feel maze-like, but there's always a main path and some branches that have treasure, merchants, and even optional bosses off to the side. Whenever you're in a new place, search high and low to make sure that you don't miss anything. In the worst case scenario where you run into a chromatic Nevron that you aren't ready for, you'll just respawn at the last expedition flag you visited if you fail the battle. You can always use fast travel points with the expedition flags anyway to go back to any boss fights you may have missed. As a bonus tip, an easy way to tell if the route you're on is the main path or sidetrack is whether or not the party starts talking. The expedition members will discuss their surroundings as you progress on the main path the first time you visit an area. So if they start having a conversation, you're making progress. But if you're still wrapping up any side stuff, that's your cue to go back and check any areas you may have missed. Okay, you knew it was coming, let's talk parries. Despite being a turn-based RPG, Clair Obscur uses a timed parry system that's instantly familiar to action game fans. If you hit the parry button at just the right time, an incoming attack is blocked and your character gets some AP back. However, you may have found that the timing is slightly different from what you're used to if you're coming from games like Sekiro or Dynasty Warriors. Instead of hitting the button at the moment the enemy attacks connects, you need to press it just slightly before, giving your character time to raise their weapon. Once you get used to this change, which is like a fraction of a second, you'll have a much easier time parrying. But until then, it might feel like you're letting attacks through that you should have been able to block with ease. And if you're still having trouble, we recommend dodging first to learn enemy patterns. Once you can time when an enemy is about to attack, then you can go back and try your hand at parries. Expedition 33 sets out for the continent with a singular goal in mind, and it might feel like you need to press onward toward the monolith at all costs. However, there are a lot of benefits to be found in returning to places that you've already been to, especially as you unlock new ways to move along the continent map later in the game. As the game's acts progress, merchants will get new stock, previously inaccessible areas will open up, and you'll be able to take on Nevrons that trashed your team in a single blow when you met them the first time. All this means that it's well worth the extra time to retrace your steps and make sure you leave nothing behind on your journey. Let's talk battle strategy. The Nevrons in each area have different attack patterns, strengths, and weaknesses, and there's no single party setup that's capable of taking them all on easily. Luckily, the members of Expedition 33 are all equally adaptable. By swapping out weapons, skills, and luminas, you can dramatically change how your party performs in battle. If an enemy is giving you trouble and your current setup isn't quite up to the task, all it can take is a few changes from the character menu to even the odds. Characters can know more skills than they can equip, so if you find that one of the 6 isn't being used very often, switch it out for one that has more utility. And speaking of upgrades, it might be worth it to use those recoats in your inventory. For example, if you're switching a character to a new weapon that works better with different stats, you might want to use that recoat to reallocate attributes and skill points for something that works better with that new weapon. Recoats are somewhat rare and expensive, yeah, costing 10,000 chroma each, but they don't do anything if you don't use them at all, so it's worth experimenting around. A bonus tip is that the game keeps 3 autosaves on your file, so if you really don't like how a recoat turned out, you can always load the 2nd or 3rd autosave to go back to before you use the recoat, though this should be a last resort if you don't want to lose that much progress. Make sure the reserve party is always ready for battle. If your party falls in battle, any character who aren't in the lineup which is the reserve party, can step in to make the last stand. This often means a single expeditioner against a foe that wiped out the main team. But if you were close to victory, the reserve party can sometimes eke out a win and save the day. If a character isn't in your main lineup, set them up specifically to handle things in a last stand. Luminas that buff solo characters, Pictos that enhance defense to help them last as long as possible, and skills for self-healing are all extremely essential. Having a backup ready to go is just as important as preparing your main team. And last, but certainly not least, danger means danger. Some areas that you find on the continent map will be marked with danger in big red letters. This is not an idle warning. If you find an area with a danger warning, you should probably heed it. You can go inside and look around if for no other reason than to mark it on the map and maybe pick up some collectibles, but don't engage any enemies until you become stronger. Foes in danger zones are usually capable of smashing your entire party to bits in a single strike. And those are our tips for Expedition 33. Happy hunting for those who come after.